It was a cold, snowy day in October 1972 when an Air Force Flight 571 crashed in snow-covered mountains. Hello friends, welcome back to Story Spot. Before starting the video, kindly like the video and subscribe my channel if you're new here, so let's begin. What would you do if you were stuck in the mountains with no hope of rescue? This is the harsh reality that the passengers of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 faced one fateful day in October 1972. Though was a chartered flight, Fairchild FH-227D by a private jet company, took off from Mendoza, Argentina, destined for Santiago, Chile. On board were 45 souls, a mix of a young rugby union team, their friends, family members, and associates. But as they were going over the majestic mountains, a sudden change in weather conditions forced the pilots to rely on instrumental navigation. However, a destructive miscalculation occurred. The pilots, believing they had already crossed the mountain range, began their descent too early. The plane collided with an unnamed peak, now known as Cerro Sealer or Glacier of Tears. This led to a harrowing crash, landing on the snow-covered mountains. In the immediate result of the crash, 12 people died either in the crash or shortly thereafter. 5 more lives were claimed by the unforgiving mountains in the following days. The initial shock gave way to a disheartening reality for the 33 survivors. They were stranded in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, with no immediate hope of rescue. Their condition was made even more desperate as they listened to radio news reports stating that the search for them had been stopped. They were left alone in the freezing wilderness, over 3,600 meters above sea level, with limited supplies and the harsh reality that they were considered dead by the outside world. With 33 survivors initially, their fight against nature's harsh elements had just started. The story of Flight 571 is not just about a plane crash. It's an example to the human spirit and the will to survive against all odds. The tale of their survival is just beginning, and what comes next is a test to humanity's bravery spirit in the face of unimaginable dangers. Imagine being trapped in freezing temperatures with little food and no source of heat. The survivors of Flight 571 found themselves in this exact situation. They were stuck in difficult environment, the mountains, standing at over 3,600 meters altitude. The temperature was unforgiving, dropping below 0 degrees Celsius at night, and the thin air at that altitude made every movement a struggle. Their only shelter was the damaged fuselage of the plane, a light weak barrier against the biting cold and wind. The survivors huddled together for warmth, their breath was freezing in the cold air, but physical discomfort was just one part of their trouble. The psychological toll of their situation was even more difficult. 8 days after the crash, an avalanche swept over their makeshift shelter in the middle of the night, took 8 more lives and burying the bodies under several feet of snow. This was a destructive blow, increasing their isolation and making their survival even more harder in the Andes. Food was an important concern. They had saved what they could from the wreckage, a few chocolates, a handful of dates, and some wine. But these supplies was not enough for 45 people stuck in the mountains. And then came the unthinkable moment. As their food supplies finished, the survivors faced a horrifying decision. The bodies of their friends and teammates, preserved in the snow, offered a potential source of nutrition. It was a matter of life and death, survival or hunger. This decision was not taken lightly. It was a last try, a hopeless measure to stay alive in the face of extreme difficulties. And so, with heavy hearts, they made the choice to survive, to honor the lives of those who had died by living on. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, their hope was finished, but their will to survive never ended. Their story is a proof to the unimaginable human spirit, the will to survive against all odds, even in the harshest of conditions. In desperation, 2 men decided to make a hard journey across the unforgiving mountains. 2 members of the rugby team, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, find themselves in an impossible situation. They were stuck in the heart of the mountains, surrounded by the frozen, dead bodies of their friends with limited supplies and dim hope. But they refused to give up. They decide to cross that impossible mountain range, a journey that will test their physical stamina and mental strength to their limits. For 10 grueling days, Parado and Canessa battled the elements. Their path was messed up with jagged ridges and deep-shaped glaciers. The air was thin and biting. With every step they faced the threat of avalanches, the constant risk of hypothermia, and the punishing altitude that made every breath a struggle. They had no map, no compass, and no mountaineering experience. Their only guide was their determination and the westward direction of the setting sun. They pushed forward, driven by the thought of their fellow survivors, their families, and the desperate need for rescue. They were forced to make makeshift shoes from scraps of plane upholstery, and their food was the ordinary rations they brought from the crash site. The journey was a testament to their bravery spirit, their refusal to give up to the disappointment that the harsh environment of the mountains so easily given to them. Finally, their struggle and hard work paid off. On the 10th day they spotted a man on a horse in the distance. It was Sergio Catalan, a Chilean arriero or muleteer. Parado and Canesas finally relieved. Here was their light of hope, their lifeline back to civilization. Against all odds, they found a glimmer of hope in the form of a Chilean man, Sergio Catalan. Their impossible journey across the mountains, marked by a lot of physical hardship and psychological trauma, had led them to this point. This encounter would trigger the long-awaited rescue operation, forever marking Parado and Canessa as symbols of bravery and the strength human spirit. The sight of rescue helicopters must have been a light of hope for the survivors. Imagine the feeling of seeing a helicopter after more than 2 months of isolation and hopelessness in the mountains, after the crash of Flight 571. The 16 survivors had suffered unimaginable hardships, from the loss of their friends and loved ones to the harsh realities of survival in the mountains. Their rescue was not an easy task. The crash site was far and difficult to reach, yet the presence of two brave souls, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, who had started a 10-day journey across the mountains, had brought hope. They had found help in the person of a Chilean man, Sergio Catalan, who gave them food and alerted the authorities to the existence of the other survivors. Sergio Catalan, a man they seen across in the vast wilderness, becomes their light of hope. He was a humble person, living a simple life in the mountains, yet his role in this story was anything but simple. Upon learning about the survivors, he wasted no time. He rode for many miles on his horse to alert the authorities. The rescue operation was launched immediately. Helicopters were dispatched, flying over the high snowy mountains, searching for the crash site. The first helicopter could only carry Parado and Canessa. The second helicopter, arriving the next day, was able to take the rest of the survivors to safety. The sight of the helicopters, the sound of their rotors must have been like a symphony to the survivors. It was the sound of hope, the sound of an end to their painful situation. As they were airlifted from the crash site, leaving the icy tomb of their fallen friends behind, they knew they had survived against all odds. After 72 days of battling the odds, the survivors were finally rescued, their ordeal coming to an end. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the will to survive, and the power of hope in the face of overwhelming adversity. What can we learn from this extraordinary tale of survival? The story of Flight 571 is not just about a plane crash, it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit when faced with unimaginable adversity. The survivors were ordinary people, not survival experts, who found themselves in an extraordinary situation. They were forced to make decisions that most of us could never conceive of, let alone face. Their courage and determination to survive were bolstered by a strong sense of community, hope, and an unwavering belief in their rescue. This unity, this collective will, was their lighthouse between the storm. It led them to make unthinkable choices, like eating the dead bodies of their own friends, to stay alive. This story also highlights the importance of leadership in times of crisis. Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa emerged as leaders, guiding the others through the most challenging days. Their 10-day trek across the mountains was a feat of extraordinary courage and determination, a testament to the lengths humans can go when driven by the will to survive. Furthermore, the Andes flight disaster underscores the importance of preparation and decision-making. The pilot's miscalculation, caused by relying solely on their instruments due to poor weather, led to the crash. This emphasizes the need for constant vigilance, the importance of making informed decisions, and the value of preparing for the worst, even in seemingly routine situations. But perhaps the most compelling lesson is the power of hope. Despite their dire circumstances, the survivors never lost hope. They held on to it, nurtured it, and it kept them alive. It drove them to survive 72 days in the freezing Andes, sparking a beacon of hope that ultimately led to their rescue. So what can we learn from this extraordinary tale of survival? It's that human will, determination and hope can triumph even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The story of Flight 571 reminds us of the strength of the human spirit when faced with unimaginable adversity. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of historical and mysterious content, subscribe my channel and hit the notification button. See you in the next video.